Today I'm going to show you how I can generate this small but non-trivial web application using Copilot in agent mode with Claude Sonnet 4. It's a very small application. It has a stores page where I can define some stores, a products page where I can define products and which stores have those products. And then on the dashboard, I can add products to a shopping list because I'm out of them or the family is out of them. And then I can quickly see in which stores I can get all the things that I need or which stores I need to visit. I'll come back to this later. So I said I was using um, Visual Studio Code here with Claude Sonnet for other options available. And I have written specifications in markdown files. These are easy to read by humans and by AI. They allow some structure. So if I go here in the specification file, I can show you that it has this whole structure, and there are others as well, Copilot instructions, and that one has, as you can see, references to other files. So that is what I call structure specification. And all I do is have a series of prompts. So it's not exactly one shot, but I'm pretty sure that uh, a better prompt would instruct the AI to do these one step by step, these 4 steps. So I started with a small application that just generates the stores page, and then with each increment, I add new functionality. Okay, let's look at some slides. Yes, slides on YouTube. So this is partly speculative, but I'm pretty sure it goes in this direction. So the promise to you is that I answer these questions. How can we generate a software application in one shot or just a few prompts? What prompts actually need to be given? What supervision is still needed? And what does this mean for software development? We have to be on the same page when it comes to how we look at software development. And I claim software development is defining the customer's information needs. You might say, well, there's also other things involved, like compiling the code into machine code and deploying and all of that. Sure, that's all needed, but it's all meant to find out what the customer's information needs are. And you can do anything you want to get there. You can create a prototype. You can do incremental development, but ultimately you're just figuring out what the customer's information needs are. And the winner is the one who gets there first because they get the most revenue. And if you don't see it like this and build perfect systems that miss the target, well, then you're still building useless systems. So software development is defining the customer's information needs. Steve Jobs said about that, people don't know what they want until you show it to them. That's true. And he showed how good he was at creating product proposals that hit the mark. I would like to add that creating a prototype fast is a really good way to give people something to shoot at. If you give people an empty sheet, they don't know what to write there. If you give them a product, they can give feedback on it. So one other thing that I would like to point out, um, Steve Jobs thought that there was a role for him because he said, until you or I show it to them. That may not be needed anymore. If the people, the customers, can generate these applications by themselves, then we have far less communication needed and therefore fewer errors in communication. So the second point is that building a prototype fast is key to success, and that's exactly where AI comes in. And the subject of this video, how can you create prototypes fast? And the software developer of the future is the one who quickly generates prototypes to get feedback on what the customer's information needs are. How to generate a software application in one shot? Well, you have to obviously write clear, complete, concise specifications. What does it mean, complete and concise, and why do I bring that up? Well, here's an intermission. In the context of AI, you have to know that context is everything. This is not necessarily new, but it is now really important. It's not new because over the ages, when people got hired, they could be as brilliant as whatever, but they could still not on day one answer questions concerning the business because they still needed context. And so that's why companies do onboarding and they tell their employees about strategy and about their products if they are smart. And in all that communication, it's very important that the communication is effective. Communicating context is a key skill in any business, but it's definitely a key skill in software development. What does it take to communicate context? Well, you have to master the language. You have to be eloquent. You have to know who the audience is. You have to meet them where they are. You have to structure that context. You cannot give it all at once. And you have to verify that the person receiving the context actually understands it. So you have to verify their output and see whether they got what you think they got. It is important to understand that context is limited. If you feed an AI everything it needs to know all at once, it causes it to forget or ignore part of it. And worse, it does so without warning. So if you give them a specification, even a specification of an app so small as the one that I showed at the beginning, you will get an incomplete app. It cannot handle that at once. This may change just this week. Claude's is promised to have a much larger context window. I have to see whether that works because it's not only the context window, it's also its attention span. But for now, context is limited, and therefore we have to feed the AI things step by step, just with humans. Okay, this is a bit of a summary of what I just said. There is a Copilot instructions file that Visual Studio Code uses, and it's really important to start using that. Let me show that here, Copilot instructions. I started a 10,000 feet view. This is a Blazor application using Entity Framework, a SQL Server targeting .NET 8.0. The application manages family shopping across multiple stores. Then it gives architecture guidelines, other guidelines and patterns that need to be followed. It gives an overview of the app, and then here there is a specification file that I forgot to refer to in other places, but this is the specification file, and it clearly said the purpose. The application or the AI needs to understand this application, and therefore we cannot just start with defining what buttons are on a screen. No, we need to give the purpose of the application. Then we tell it what pages there are, and for each what purpose this page has. And well, you get the idea. And here are the tests one by one, also very specific. And this is what I mean by um, being eloquent, precise, concise uh, um, in your specification. And last but not least, because the context is limited, you have to feed it step by step. So I started with just the stores page, which is a simple page, not dependent on any other page. And then I added in increments the other pages. And in that way, it could handle the load. What prompts or context need to be given as input? What do I have here? This is a file that I called roadmap. Um, and here there are 4 prompts. So the first one says explicitly to follow all the instructions, the requirements, and then generate the uh, the base application in as it is defined here, um, and ignore all increments. So the other increments are in other files, and I already showed this. Sorry about that. Where am I? Here. Here's the architecture guidelines. You might object against this calling this architecture, but I just wanted to make sure that it created code behind files and CSS isolation, because I don't want to deal with that at the 15th increment when it's really necessary. In the beginning, it is not, but it's good to start on the right page. And the second one is definitely something that you need to tell Copilot. Okay, let's do then a demo. Just a little bit more about this thing. I already addressed it, but it may be clear that given that the products have a many-to-many relationships to stores, that it is not trivial. And in my specification, I don't say at all how this should look like, or actually none of how this should look like. I keep giving specifications that are specific but not in detail. And so I leave it to the AI to generate this. And it understood it, and it generated this, and it works. And this application comes also with tests. And so I'm pretty happy with the end result. Of course, the colors may be not right, the layout may not be right, but I'm looking here to get a functional prototype for customer feedback. Okay, here I address that the AI was smart enough to find the specifications.md file in my folder, and without me referring to it. I think that's pretty smart. Then here I show now implement increment 2. So I was already using the whole roadmap, and it says, let me first read the roadmap file. Smart. Now let me read the full specification to understand. And again, it reads the specification, and then it says, now I understand what increment 2 requires. This is a typical way how the AI or Copilot gives feedback to you. It very clearly says what it is doing. And there's a reason for that, because we need to be on top of it. The AI will make small mistakes, and we need to catch them. And it's important for us to keep track of what the AI is doing. Basically, what it is doing is a translation and automated test. So we provide them some markdown files. It translates these into code and test code. Then it compiles the code and fixes all compilation errors, typically namespace clashes. Then it compiles the test code, and then it runs the test code, and it finds more errors, and it keeps cycling and updating the code until it's finally done. And if you clearly define what done means, then you have most likely a working product. I found only very small mistakes, um, so that's good. Now, this didn't happen. The end result didn't uh, exist until I had done some developing myself. I needed to develop these instructions. So originally, I didn't know about that it needed to be incremental development. So I gave it the large file, and it failed because of the context size. But I also didn't say explicitly that I wanted certain things like code behind files, and it didn't do that either. You don't need to, but I wanted it, and so I had to ask for it. In this particular case, it used some weak way of generating tests. So it used the word or the string added recipe to see whether a modal was open, because that string appeared on the modal. And unfortunately, that string added recipe also appeared as a title of a button element on the page. And so testing whether the modal was open with this string failed because it was always on the page as this title. And so I discussed that with the AI and then used Copilot itself to give me advice on how I could have avoided this. And then it echoed back, yes, you're right. I did it the wrong thing. This is ambiguous. Here's to avoid this confusion. And it gave me several options, and I chose the first one. And here is another session where I run into a similar problem. And this led, this conversation with Copilot led to number 8 here, prefer CSS selectors with data test ID over searching for text content in tests. So with the help of the Copilot, I was able to improve my instructions. And the last run that I did with the instructions as they are here worked perfectly fine. It didn't even run into this problem with the failing test that it couldn't fix because it did it first time right using these data test IDs. Okay. What is another problem that I ran into? How do the Copilot instructions need to be updated so that starting from scratch, Copilot would generate the error display component and use it with the exception handling service to display and blah, blah, blah. Well, this was triggered by this. I had asked explicitly to wrap all service calls in a try-catch block, and it did so. But I forgot to say that there should actually be some error handling in the catch clause. And apparently, well, this is my working assumption. Apparently, the Claude is trained with a lot of applications on GitHub that are not real apps, and the people who work on them don't want to spend time on error handling, and they write something like this. And this becomes so common that Claude mimics or parrots this poor pattern. So I asked it, how can I make this better? And that resulted in this file of error handling patterns. And again, when I use this in the final run, it did everything fine, and I have now proper error handling. Great. So that promises me that if I have another application, the next application, and I use the same guidelines and instructions, and again, the a complete specification of that app, that it will also generate that incrementally first time right. What supervision is still needed? Well, one example is this. This is actually quite important. After the first iteration, the first step where I had the base application, just the stores page, there were a few things that were not exactly right, and I had to fix those. And so it's important to set the direction properly at the beginning, because in increment 2, it will use the same patterns it recognizes from what is already there. It's pretty good at that. So here you can make corrections, and these were small, but I'm just saying don't just keep pushing the go ahead button, because at some point you have polluted uh, the succeeding increments with the one with errors that were already visible in the first one. Okay, here's another one. It claims to be ready when there are still 2 tests out of 87 failing. Yeah, okay. It's ready for the demo of the prototype. It's ready for getting feedback. So you could argue it's right, but um, if you well, I wanted to have it um, uh, pass all tests, so I did these tests myself. So that little supervision was still there. I fixed those tests myself. What does this mean for software development? Well, I can of course only speculate about the near future, but one thing is sure, AI is here and AI is here to stay. It can generate complete apps given a complete spec. Uh, the apps are approximations, so functional prototypes, and I showed you how you can, what the reason is that you would want to generate those. And if I had to create this app that I created here in the final version with the final markdown files, it would have taken me at least a week. And I consider myself pretty fluent in this stuff. But with the um, markdown files correct, I got this done in just 2 hours. Now, that's of course not the complete picture, because writing these markdown files, the app specific part is not trivial. It's not something that you do in an hour. So, but definitely there's a productivity gain there. The fourth bullet pointer in the middle, the domain expert can develop the app. That is where it's going. So, and that's a good thing, because currently I claim that many software products fail because the software developments don't know what the domain is, and the domain experts are either not available or they have a difficult time communicating it. And yeah, so the wrong systems are built almost all the time. Um, break it down. So I created this roadmap. That is still an important skill. It's also non-trivial to do that, but well, in this app that I had, it was trivial, but in general, it's not. But product managers do this all the time. They have to prioritize features. Then language skills are as important as ever. So if you read in the newspapers that your children don't need to read or write anymore, that's all nonsense. They need to read. They need to understand what the AI writes, and they need to instruct clearly what the AI needs to do. And for that, you need language skills. The developments go very fast, so stay tuned. It could be that already, I haven't tried it, but you could just go on a walk with a customer or just brainstorm with yourself and record all that. Let an AI generate a summary, and then ask the AI to generate these markdown files for you. And I would bet that they're already pretty good. And of course, you can edit them before you feed them to Copilot with Claude Sonnet 4.